Yeah, we're going to be talking about Gen X in the news today. But before we do that, as everybody comes on and we recap, yes, yesterday, Lawrence and Fusoon Aiden, it is Aiden, right? Not Aiden.
I think Adine.
Okay.
Fusun, don't be mad.
Whenever we
You're gonna,
ask,
you're gonna have
I'll
to
just,
teach us again how to
I know.
properly say your last name.
And we're just gonna, it's like Madonna, Fusoon. We don't need a last name, but,
Right. We're predicting the future when she'll be famous and everyone will just call her Fusun.
and we'll just start it here with the Whatever Network.
Right.
She and Lawrence have founded a new
Ideen, she says in the chat.
Aiden. Okay.
Ideen. Ident. Oh, okay.
Aiden. First
Ident.
accent on the first syllable? I think it's on the first syllable, but
All right.
they founded a new podcast called Dirty Talk. It is on right after the Daily Whatever on Fridays. So at 8 a.m. my time, 11 a.m. your time. Go down the time zones.
4 p.m.
Crazy.
Western European Standard Time, which is where Fusun is usually in Portugal.
Yes. And so and it is not porn, as it said in the title. It is very frank, pragmatic, loving, not in a romantic way, just kind talk about sex. And it's exactly how people should talk about sex. Like people get so weird and dumb about just sharing information about how sex works. And I think, I mean, if you could list the top 5 problems in the world, that's probably in there.
Yeah.
Like everyone does it. We're all made from it. It's a source of pleasure and connection. Like, why can we not just talk about how it works?
Right.
Especially for younger people who don't know what they're doing yet. But I mean, at all ages, you should just be able to talk about it. And I loved it. You all should absolutely tune in, and with the full knowledge that you're going to get an earful about. Well, yesterday was about bottoming. If you go back and watch it, which is something I do not know a whole lot about. Of course, I know what it is because I listen and pay attention. But like, boy, it was educational and just there was, I think it was Kat who said there was somebody on there talking about how she had a teenage son, and should I talk to him about this? That's really stuck with me because of course I have 2 teen kids, and I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't corner him at the dinner table and talk about it, but you should, you know, provide some basic facts and things and links or books to learn more and be like, the door is open if you want to talk about any of this at all. I'm right here. But no, it's nothing to be ashamed about. I know it's embarrassing because I'm your mom, but like, let's talk. Like, I just, of course, you should know all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I loved
Yeah,
it.
and
I loved it.
it felt a little bit like a full circle moment for me in my life because you know this. I've talked to you about this.
Hmm.
As a gay man of our generation, like I didn't have anybody to ask because the guys who were just a little bit older than me died of AIDS. Like there
Right.
was a gap, a blank space where there should have been mentors and teachers and probably lovers, and I didn't get any of that, and so I figured it out on my own, much like Fusun did as she was coming up, and so yeah, it was like I'm saying way more publicly than I really thought that I would, but it's not embarrassing. It feels liberating and educational, and like maybe somehow I'm doing some good in the world.
You absolutely are. You absolutely are. And also it was fun. I mean, you kept it, lighthearted, but grounded and like, yeah, no, this is what you need to know. You need this shower adapter. You need this,
Right, you really need that shower adapter.
and right. And people in the comments were weighing in with just, really great comments too. I don't know if you saw Mr. Troy wrote like, why are people getting so hysterical about this? It's just poop. Just people get so bent. But part I think of why they do. I'm sorry, you guys. This cold is just. Uh, but part of why they do is because it is stigmatized. It is not talked about. So if it was just more, if people have the confidence to just be like, "It's not a big deal. Why are you making this such a big deal?" Then it would be easier to do so. Hang on, I'm muting my computer
Yeah.
so that I can watch the live chat. Oop. Oh, that info was so great to discuss. I'm so curious about how all that works as an anal amateur. I love
Well,
anal amateur. That could be a
stick
t-shirt.
with us, kid. Stick with us, Robin. We'll help you out. Fusen said, "My partner asked what I did today, and I said teaching people how to clean douches."
Nice. I mean, someone
It's
needs
true.
to, right? Somebody's got to. Um, I don't see Fus. Oh, is Fusin direct messaging you? Okay, I was like,
No, no, no. She's in the chat. It's just if
uh,
you join the chat on your computer, you don't see any of the previous messages.
oh, I see. Okay, well, I've just joined. Um, we're here today. We're here today. This sounds so solemn.
Mhm.
Um, to talk about Gen X, which you think with a publication named like Gen Xy, this would be us every day, making this very explicitly about Gen X, only
Right.
bringing Gen X people on. And I've been thinking a lot about that the last few weeks because, we're new, we're just starting, we're figuring out who we are. Well, we know who we are with, well-established identities each in our friendship so solid, but like, who are we as a podcast and a publication? And, like, there's nothing I would change, we will not explicitly every day be like, "This is a Gen X moment."
Right.
Underline, underscore, OMG, gag me with a spoon, Gen X,
Whatever.
whatever. Um, this is Gen Xy because, Gen Xy is our ethos and everything we're doing, wanting to talk frankly about sex even, like, that is a very Gen Xy ethos. Um e Et cetera, et cetera. So every day we're not going to be coming in and being like, um, you know, there's a movie out that's Gen X related, or there's a this and that that's Gen X related explicitly. We're certainly not going to limit our guests to people who are Gen X because Gen Xy people are curious about what's going on in the world. And we know all too well that we're certainly not all of the world and never have been. But today, um, we want to stop and acknowledge that articles are kind of starting to pile up. I mean, I think you could count them all still on one hand, but it's getting close to all the fingers. Um,
I think you might need two at this point.
Maybe two. We can certainly still do it on our hands, but they're the after being historically ignored for many, many years, for forever, really. Um, Very big publications are starting to write Gen X specific stories. And ironically, I suppose, if we weren't in the kind of Gen X pinches that we're both in of like overworked, uh, overworked, underpaid, overburdened, keeping all the lights on for everyone with no credit, we would be in real time responding to those stories. I've had responses here
Right.
for months for some of them, but we are all of those things. So today we want to stop and pause and
Eh,
talk about some of the Gen X stuff in the news. Lawrence wrote a brilliant story. I literally just read it minutes before getting on the call because it's new.
Well,
Um,
and like to your point, I stayed up until 2 a.m. last night to write it because I wanted to have an article to talk about on this topic because, like you said, I've been thinking all these thoughts. I just, haven't had the time this week to really get them down in pixels. And so,
yep, you did a really good job once you stayed up till 2 a.m., which tends to be, I think, for a lot of us when the stuff happens. As for me, so I was going to tackle and will still tackle the New York Times article that's about Gen X women and how we're the last sexual generation and we're having the best sex. Um, I have started this story, um, but I'm having a very Gen X overwhelming week, including the fact that I am sick and have not taken care of the fact that I'm sick because no time. I did go to urgent care yesterday, Lawrence, at like 4 in the afternoon. And I was like, I just need an inhaler. That's what happens when I get to this point. I'm fine, but I need an inhaler. And she listened and she was like, So none of this and none of that. I'm like, nah, a little, not really. And she was like, If this gets any worse, I want you to get a chest x ray. And I was like,
Jesus.
seriously? But she's like, "I don't think you have pneumonia," but, she prescribed the inhaler I want. Well, there's 2, but 1 is the main one, QVAR, and, then I went to my local Bartell Drugs, which is this, like, drugstore that's, like, everyone in Seattle loves. It's been around for 125 years. They got bought out.
Used
Who
to
bought
love
out? Used to love because they got bought out,
by Rite
and
Aid. Now they suck.
by Rite Aid. Yeah, like, I should put a picture in. The shelves are, like, 80% empty at any
Yeah.
given time, in the store part, but the pharmacy was also out of my inhaler. And I'm like, "I do not have fucking time to go chase down this inhaler."
Right.
And
I
so
will
I'm
stand here and wait impatiently while you go get one from another pharmacy.
right. Um, yeah, so I guess I'm waiting. And then speaking of drugs, I think you all know, my dog had surgery on Wednesday for a torn ACL, and I'm now her caretaker, so I'm living in this like, I kinda can't leave the house easily, which is why I can't go chasing down the drugs. And, Rite Aid doesn't even exist in Michigan anymore. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna exist here for very long. I'm gonna switch pharmacies soon, but, Kira, late yesterday, like, she's been just doped up and cute, and was clearly in pain yesterday and making her little sad sounds. So I gave her the 4th med she's allowed to take, which is codeine, and I was like, "Oh, she's gonna be knocked out." This dog was fucking insane all evening. Like, she wouldn't so I had her in my lap, like, she was fighting to get off the couch, but in my lap while my youngest and I watched a movie last night, and then at bedtime, she was, like, running all over the place in her little area. She's asleep now, but, I looked it up, and codeine makes most dogs tired, but agitates a
Right.
few dogs.
And you got the Agitate brand.
And I wrote to their, like, "We're here all the time" email address twice, the nurses line last night, and I see just as we're talking, they finally responded, and I'm like, "Okay, thanks. Well, she's asleep now. No more codeine. I
Right.
figured it out on my own
Right. Thank you. Huh.
because I'm Gen X and and so my eldest was going to sleep down with her last night, but she was just being too rowdy, so I was like, I got this. So yeah, I'm very tired and I don't have a story, this explicit story, and I'm making maybe the explanation long and boring, but as I've been, you know, 11 minutes of getting ready after reading your story, I was like, this is a very actually Gen X kind of thing you're talking about in this story, Lawrence, of like, it's just sort of this like we've done it all without the credit, without the equity. And I did post a story this week. It's not my Gen X women having the are we really having the best sex story? Because my answer is not really. But it's a long answer, so I haven't written it yet. But I did post the preamble to it, and I don't know if we wanna talk about that story on this podcast today, or if we just wanna jump into yours. And the preamble being a story I wrote, last year and I'm finally sharing on Substack about, talk quietly in case my kids are awake, about, like, the one time I actually did have sex in the last year and a half, and that it was, borderline traumatic, and it doesn't explicitly call out Gen X in the story, but I do think it is a very Gen X, for me, story about being out of line with dating norms and, being hard to trick, but still trickable, and how it's like the physical violation was, but the, not trusting being able to trust my own instincts is what the real violation is, because that's what Gen X relies on to get through
Right.
the world.
I saw that you had
Anyways.
posted that story, and it's a really powerful one. Everyone should go read it. And I think like there is a perverse way in which this does fit really well with this conversation today.
Mhm.
Like in the piece that you were just talking about, where I love that line you just said of, like I don't know, hard to trick, but still sometimes trickable, or
Right.
yeah,
Human, I mean,
and I feel like that is that exemplifies what I was trying, a piece of what I was trying to get to in the article about our whole lives. We've been, and I promise this will connect. I'm doing the Dana Weave for a minute. This idea that our whole lives we were told, oh, like work hard and play by the rules, and you got to put in the effort and nose to the grindstone. Eventually you'll get yours, right? And it's always been a Lucy in the football kind of moment for us, right? It's always like at that moment where like, oh, you're going to be a director. Oh no, we're doing a massive reorg. You're not. right? And
Yes.
I feel like the way that fits to your story is, by your own admission, like you have very high standards. There's ways in which you are very traditional, for lack of a better word, in terms of what you're looking for in a connected, monogamous, loving relationship. And I think the story is kind of that same, like, football trick, right? The football getting pulled away.
Yes.
Like, you're about to have this connection with a good looking man that you're interested in. He's interested in you. And no, it's actually an assault, and, kind of heartbreaking because you got the football yanked at the last moment. Is that
Mhm.
a fair assessment?
I love when you first said Lucy in the football, it took like, I thought you were gonna go somewhere like Lucy and the Sky with Diamonds or something, and I was like, "Lucy in the football," and then I was like, "Oh, Peanuts." 100%. Here, let me get this story, uh, let me navigate to get another window. It absolutely, was like that, and if you read the story, which let me put it in the chat here, it's called, "I Gave My Consent, He Gave Me Bruises," and I will put it right there. Yes, there and, a virtual friend, Steve Uppenthal, who lives in Washington, and we met through Medium. He made a really sweet comment on it last night. You know, when you haven't met people in real life, but they feel like they're your friends because you write on each other's things. He's a wonderful feminist. He has 4 daughters. He's married and has 4 daughters. He's surrounded by women all the time. But if you read the story, read his comment, and eh, there's a pivotal point in the story where when I'm first the meet cute of meeting this guy in our initial date, it's so fairy tale-ish. And then just before, I went back to his house and just before we're about to hop in bed, he pulls, I'm gonna use the same football thing at you like, hey, I'm not, looking, I really like you and wanna blah blah blah. But also, I'm seeing other people. I'm not looking for an exclusive relationship right now. And um, traditional me would have, like, gotten off the couch and left, but at the time, like, I kind of knew that, like, my ongoing theory here, at least in Seattle, is any, like, good-looking, successful, single, straight liberal guy is dating a lot of people because the numbers are not in my favor. There's so few.
Right.
And he hadn't given any indication until that point. In fact, it was quite the opposite, which
Right.
sort of softened me. But then he had plausible deniability at like 11:59 and 58
Right.
seconds.
Right. And
And being
you're
like,
horny and ready to go. And,
I,
like it was a
I,
trick.
it was like in retrospect, I'm like, that is, I don't want to say abusive because that's too strong of a word, but it was manipulative and it was wrong.
Right.
And that is not, uh, like, it was such a shift. And I say in the story, like, I know it is, and I acknowledge it, but, like, you know this about me, Lawrence, like, I'm not one to emotionally process on my feet, and I'd already kind of thought this through, and I was like, "Oh, if it comes to that, like, I will date him in what the modern parlance of dating means, which is we're seeing and sleeping with multiple people and trying to see how this goes." And I'm like,
Right.
"That
He's
works out
solo
for."
poly in the parlance of the modern children.
Yeah, we could get into the linguistics of why I hate that term. 'Cause those 2 words are at odds, but also, there are people who are poly and there are people who are non-monogamous in very sensible, um, consensual ways that work for them great. I think giving language like that to shitty men is really shitty for women like me when it's simply being used to be the same fucking asshole you always were, but
Right.
you're, like, legitimizing it with a term.
Right.
And I
Right.
recognize that's unpopular, but don't give horrible, poorly behaved straight men legitimacy.
Well,
Just be
it's
like,
like it's like we've, spent all this time and effort, ourselves and the younger generations, like, honing new words as tools to be able to say, like, oh, we do have ways of describing this nature of
yes,
being. And, and yet there's still, dudes, and it's usually dudes who are going to come along and be like, oh, that's a lovely tool. I could use that as a dagger to get what I want.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So, um, this this was he was Gen X, and this is actually um, eh, a very Gen X, like, clever like, he's figured out what it takes to, what's it like, to best someone like me, which sounds very arrogant, but, um, I have heard like, every now and then I get updates of, like, people finding me in the wild and having another awful experience of, like, you know the language to get what you want, but then your actions are as shitty and
Right. And it's about
non-consensual
that
as
same
the
guy,
worst.
right? Like what you're saying is you connect with
Yes,
women who have had experiences with that same
with the
guy,
same guy. Yes,
and
and
they're like,
similar
"Oh, yeah,
experiences.
he also used that tool as a dagger on me as well."
Yes, I mean, right down to the, like, "Oh, my youngest is gender nonconforming too. I think it's so great, we're so accepting of differences." And, like, I've had long story, but there was someone else who was like, "Oh my god," he, like, struts that out like a blue ribbon of, like, "Look at how, look how progressive I am."
Right.
But
Here's the shitty
meanwhile
thing.
yeah,
I'm gay. I'm not straight, so I can't really profess to know this from a straight perspective. But I'm pretty sure if we could have the little cartoon drawing of what's going on in his head, it's just
yeah.
like pussy, 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 pussy. I figured it out how to get all the pussy.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that's what's
not
going on
cough,
in
and
there.
I want you to do that again because I wanna, like, make this a meme. I
Right,
wanna make okay, can you sing that again? And
right.
won't cough.
We're gonna
Do it
turn that
again.
into
Do it again.
a little GIF or something.
We're gonna reuse it. No, seriously, will you do that again? That was really funny. It'll make me
I
laugh.
I'm not a dancing monkey. I can't
You
just
can't?
perform on demand, Dana.
Okay, damn it. Oh, I am leaning over here to plug in my because,
Because your
I
phone didn't charge and you're about to drop, leaving me alone with nobody today.
yes, and
Quick,
it's
Huson,
not
Robin, who wants to join us in the event that Dana's phone dies?
well, so here's why that could happen is that when my life is put together I sleep in my room and my phone is plugged in overnight. But last night I slept on the couch on this charger. Oh, weird. I plugged it in and it says it's still at 40%, but it didn't charge my phone all night. It's like it looks like it's a little over half charged. So I'm putting my portable charger back on the charger so that I can plug anyways. This is very
Yeah.
boring.
Robin
Um,
says, look what happened last time we did that. Yeah, we had a blast. We talked about
did have a
ancient
blast.
dildos. Come on. It was amazing.
Two-sided. Two-sided.
Right, double ended.
Take that,
Yeah.
Houston. We can have dirty talk here too.
Right.
Right. Yeah, and if we're gonna get in the I have to be quiet because my kids are home, and I'm very transparent with them, but not about they don't need to know everything.
Everything, everything.
But the guy Lawrence,
Pulaki.
Pulagi, 6'3" too, and
Oh,
just kind of a manscaped mess, so it was like and not yeah, yeah, who knows why. I suspect drugs and alcohol were involved because of the more than I realized. I mean, we had a glass of wine, but yeah, it wasn't even good sex, Lawrence, for all that.
that's
But
the worst. That's
it's
the true, like that's the universe being the Lucy pulling the football on you.
right? Well, although maybe not, because if it had been really good, I might have been sadder. But my ancient double dong dildo article came out today. Oh, great, Robin, put it in the chat.
Yeah, post the links for real. Not
Yes,
not that we can't find you, but also like promote your stuff.
do it. Yes,
So maybe this is a
disappointing, honestly. Is it a good time to pivot to your story, Lawrence?
sure.
Is that what you were going to say, or was it something
Yeah, yeah.
else?
No, I was. I mean, only because I stayed up until 2, and hey, Amy. Um, yeah. So I really got angry once again, kind of reading those articles, right? So the Economist one is paywalled, so I can't really post a shareable link, but um, it 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 upset me in the same way that the original New York Times article upset me because the headline is essentially that like Gen X are the biggest losers. I'm totally blanking on the headline right now, but
It's
when you read the article, it's
it
this
is
frame of like
why. why Gen X is the loser generation.
Right. Which
And then the
is
subhead is, "Don't cry for millennials or Gen Z. Save your pity for those in their 50s." Fuck you.
right. Yeah. Seriously, like from the go at the headline, it's like fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Anyone
And
from
they
The
frame
Economist on this? You can just
yeah, yeah,
stuff
fuck
these.
you, economist. But in the article, when you read the article, they're making really good points. They're making points that we would make, right? That because we are in this often overlooked generation, because boomers and silent folks, kind of lived longer and were active longer, they didn't leave their jobs earlier. And so we didn't get promotions in the timeline that other generations would have. We're squeezed, with the millennials and Gen Z coming up being bigger generations who are also kind of craving advancement. And the timeline that we talk about all the time, Dana, that between like the recession of the early 90s, which is what we graduated into, to the dot-com bust, to the 2008 financial crisis, right as we should have been kind of acquiring homes and starting to build that generational wealth thing, like our timeline has just been fucked from the beginning. Like
Yes.
we've had this football poll happen multiple times over the course of our lives and careers. And
Yes.
so the loser here is we haven't been able to build up either social capital or real financial capital because we're competing against bigger generations, and like timing has just worked out such, and it really resonated for me. This about my story. I have worked at some big technology companies. I worked at some big technology companies at the beginning of a big technology company and was given stock options, but also paid such a shit salary that I literally had to sell my stock options just to live in the expensive city of Seattle. And, so I think,
Girl, same. Still doing it.
right. And, and we're lucky, right? Like we're privileged. Like we must acknowledge that, there's a certain privilege to being able to tell that side of the Gen X story. But that has happened across our generation at kind of across racial lines and across class lines. Just this idea that we've not been able to kind of really catch a break and accumulate wealth in the way that our parents and grandparents did.
Right.
And
This is,
and then
I am plugging in right now. This is entirely, actually, while I have this off the holder, come walk with me. We're going to talk and walk while I refill my teacup. This is entirely like why we started Gen X, Lawrence. All these ideas that you're talking about
mhm.
from the Economist story. This was this was it. A like um, Gen X doesn't have it the worst. I mean, there's been countless think pieces on millennials and the headwinds they're up against in terms of college costs and like the lack of career opportunities because of recessions and da da da. And Gen
I
Z,
mean,
like Lord knows what they're up against.
but if they
But
just stopped eating avocado toast, they'd be fine.
right,
So
and then there are those as well, those stories as well. But like Gen X was first, and we didn't get any think pieces. It was just, oh well, I this is a little bit of a tangent, but I think that you will. I think this is like a my family of origin, like Gen X moment, because I didn't really, I don't have vivid memories of drinking from fire hoses, but this. Sorry, I'm on a little bit of a tangent here, and then I want to come back to your story, but ties back in. Um, in 2018, I got laid off, and I have never really had a hard time getting a job. I know a lot of people out here, and it was usually in the past, it was just like you hit up your network and somebody had something, and you were working again, and maybe it wasn't the greatest job, but whatever. I wasn't that worried, and I was then in my late 40s, mid to late 40s, and I started looking for work, and it was grueling, and I was almost up to my 6 month when unemployment runs out when I finally got hired after 14 full loops. I mean, hundreds of applications, countless phone screens, but I went through 14 full interview loops.
right.
Three of them at companies where I had worked, a company where I had worked before, and left on good terms, and they were all no's. And that was when I really realized, oh my gosh, the age bias is real, and the I have never been hired off of a loop where someone wasn't where there was no one over 40 since
Yeah.
then. But this is the Gen Xy part, like, a couple years later, I was talking to my mom, and, she said something about, like I don't remember how she worded it, Lawrence, but it was something about, like, did I deplete all of my retirement at that point? And, like, my family does okay, and I have one relative who is quite wealthy, and no one helped. Like,
Right.
I didn't ask, but nobody was like, "Wow, Dana, you've 2 kids and a mortgage, and you're single, and you're unemployed. You're working your butt off to get a job, but, like, here, just take this to get you by." But my mom actually asked something about, like, did I end up selling off all of my retirement, which I never touched my retirement. I never even got close to having to dip into my retirement, and I was like, "How broke do you think I was at 48?" And also, real like, you didn't help? Like,
Right.
you
Like
would have
that
let me
thought
do that?
crossed your mind, right? Like, mom,
You
the thought crossed your mind, and your response wasn't to say, "Oh, dear daughter, let me help you because I can."
right, it's just that, like, boomer to Gen X thing of, like, "I don't know what my kid's doing, they'll be fine." Like, you thought and you were okay with not even asking at the time or offering to help that I might have depleted the entirety of my life and retirement savings. Oh, cool. Okay, I guess. But like that's just how Gen X goes. We're like, great, cool. You're not helping me. I'll find another way.
Right.
Not to
Yeah.
say that's everyone's experience, but that's
Right. And you're still very lucky, right, that you got through that experience and you didn't have to deplete your savings. I've been
yeah,
through everyone knows I just got a job. Hallelujah. Knock wood, everything, stays good. But
right.
like I went through 10 months, I did deplete my savings, right? And God
Mhm.
bless my family. They did help me financially, but the thing that I experienced there was well, you just have to go try harder, right? And I was like, what do you people not understand about the fact that I have applied to literally 750 jobs? And I'm not talking like I just sent them my resume and it's the exact same resume that I send everyone. I'm
Right. I'm
talking
not
about
stupid.
for the vast majority of these jobs, I literally read the job description. I changed the title on my resume to exactly whatever it was they were looking for. I changed the bullet points to use the words that were in the job. Like every one of them was tailored.
Yes.
And it isn't just like there is no world in which you just go someplace and hand them your resume. Like I'm not even
Not
sure you could do that
anymore.
at McDonald's anymore, right? They you go online. I know this because I applied at McDonald's. You go online and you pick the area that you're in and you tell them where what you want to apply for. Same for Costco, same for everyone. Same for everything. I'm just going to go march in and dress nice and show them I'm perky and available and have a great resume doesn't get you
Right.
anything anymore.
Right. Um, so yeah, that both of these stories to me are coming back to this like we're first. We're first to be dealing with the fact that the so-called American dream is not so dreamy anymore. And it's nice that the news is catching on, but they're getting some of it wrong. And Lawrence, I want to pivot to you say pivot in your story too. We pivot a lot. Gen X, very corporate term, but it's a good verb. How would you feel about reading some of your story? Because as you know, we all love your reading voice.
I was I was genuinely not expecting to read it. Um,
You don't have to, but um I there were so many parts I loved on this that I'm like, I don't even know what to share first, but I actually went to clip some of it, and then I was like, "Shoot, Substack opened this in browser because I was looking on my phone when I first woke up.
yeah,
Um, every time someone told us to, quote, "Just play the game turned out to be rigged."
every fucking time,
Every fucking
right?
time.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like we kind of shifted topics like three times. I read the Economist article. It made me angry, and then I thought, okay, well, I'll contrast it with that Vogue article about how maybe we're secretly the cool kids, right? So both articles are linked in the story, and the Vogue one is, "What if Gen Xers are actually the cool ones?" Which how lovely. Thank you, Vogue. Except basically, they're sort of like, the conclusion that you get out of that article is we're the cool ones now because we basically whatevered our way through life and said, you know, um, like we eschewed success, material success, financial success, um, in every, at for the sake of not selling out. Like that idea that we've been talking about that's kind of, Gen X, a Gen X kind of calling card, which is we don't want to sell out. It's like that scene in Say Anything where John Cusack is like, well, I don't want to I don't want to sell anything like bought or produced. I don't want
Yep.
to produce anything bought or sold. And it's like the
I
ultimate
just want to
kind of
spend time with your daughter. Yeah.
right, right. Like, and I guess kind of writ large, we did that. We opted out of selling out so that we could kind of maintain some form of integrity. And so now we're cool because we didn't opt out. We didn't, eat the fruit of temptation along the way in life. But once again, it means we finally got some kind of cultural cachet, but we don't have any kind of like financial, backing to back
Yes.
it up. And
I
so,
that was one of the lines I loved. I'm going to read it if you won't. May I read this?
mhm.
Okay, I'm going to read part of Lawrence's story here. Um, Economic reality versus cultural legacy. I'm going to read this section. The Economist crunches the numbers. Gen X has earned less, saved less, and built less wealth than the boomers who came before us. We bought homes later if we bought them at all, took on more student debt, raised kids without affordable health childcare, and I would add, or family close by because we were the first ones to migrate away, and got none of the pensions and lifelong employment perks our parents enjoyed. Yes. Meanwhile, Vogue waxes poetic about our cultural residue. Cultural residue, Lawrence, that just made me go, oof. We made grunge, Riot Girl, and Tarantino. We wore flannel unironically. We invented slacker chic. Our vibe, chill, cynical, and anti corporate, has become the global aesthetic. But here's the catch: our cultural cachet didn't come with equity. We defined the mood, but we didn't monetize it. It wasn't cool to monetize shit back when we were doing it. So we taught the world to reject the system, and the system responded by erasing us from its succession plans. So, yeah, we're the coolest losers you'll ever meet. We're the leather jacketed extras in capitalism's closing credits. And we've been shape shifting through every busted promise since.
Yeah,
Goosebumps. It's so good.
thank you.
It's so good. I love it. There were so many lines that I wanted to call out in this, and here you get into what I was saying of we never got our articles. That leads with, while boomers were building careers and millennials were being studied like exotic bugs, we were just figuring it out. No viral moments, no Time magazine covers. We were busy surviving Reaganomics, AIDS, crack epidemics, Columbine, and the dot-com crash. And when the 2008 meltdown hit, we were in our 30s and 40s, halfway up the corporate ladder and first on the chopping block. And that's when we got really good at shape shifting. Sorry, I
Yeah.
just love this so much. I'm going to read this next paragraph and then I'll stop. Some of us leaned hard into hustle culture before it had a name. Others went freelance, gigged, started micro businesses, or got lost in endless lateral moves. We became the generation of reinvention, because the system kept resetting the board. But no matter how many times we adapted, it was never quite enough to break through.
Honestly,
Vote,
I cried when I wrote that line because I can't
yes.
tell you the number of times in my own career where I was working my ass off with somebody that I trusted who is from a generation slightly older than us, and right as I was about to get the big promotion, right as I was about to become director, right as whatever was about to happen, we got reorged, or that person left and I had to start over with a brand new manager, or, you know, I left the company because I thought I wasn't going to get the chance there. And so I moved somewhere else and had to start over from scratch. Like, I've tried so fucking hard in my career to do the things that I was supposed to do, to, climb up the corporate ladder and, do it with integrity and do it while being kind to people and all of it. And I never broke through. We never broke through.
Yeah, I reading this, Lauren, yeah, I mean, you're my best friend and we talk about this stuff all the time. And still reading this, I was like, oh my God, yes. The way you framed it is um it's perfect. And this might be another story we want to explore sometimes, but like is I think Gen X is so I'm thinking about the idea of the lateral moves, but we're really good at ducking. This is my biggest corporate career. Like when they're like, "What's your biggest skill at review time?" The skill I can't name is I know when it's time to jam. I
Right.
know when to duck. I've moved so many times. I'm on my fifth role in 4 years where I am now. And it's not because I enjoy being new. I hate being new. I love having institutional knowledge when I'm at work. I love knowing what I'm doing. I love having deep relationships with my coworkers. That's not how corporate life is set up, at least not in my world anymore.
Right.
It is
Right.
all about ducking and darting. And and we're cockroaches, right? We've been told we're cockroaches, that we're gonna outlive everybody.
Well,
This is part of why,
yeah.
right?
Well, and I think there's a personality trait there, right? That part of that is you having an intuitive sense better than me, because part of what's happened to me is every time I've seen that coming has been a point where it's like, oh no, just like stick it out, and you're going to get promoted and do right, and it never works out. So you hear that, I think, and you're like, time to jam, and I see that, I'm kind of like, but the shiny thing that I've been promised, and I always fall for waiting for the shiny thing, and it always gets pulled.
I've never been promised the shiny thing.
Uh, That's interesting, right? I wonder if
Not I
that's
mean,
a
I shouldn't say never. I have not recently been promised a shiny thing.
I wonder if
It's
that's
survi
gender in the workplace, right? Like
um, maybe. And it may be the kinds of roles I'm in, and it may be the age I am now, and the way that the corporate world is working, but, I gosh, we could, I feel like I keep distracting us from this amazing story that you've written here, but your story is making me
okay,
think of
because I do have a point
yes,
that I want to get back to. So
get
say
back
your
to it
thing.
then. I will save my thing. I should write it down.
Well, it's the
Um,
it, we chatted about this morning, which is I want to pivot us. I want to position us as we're a late blooming generation, right?
yes,
Because I think what is happening now, you know, late stage capitalism is breaking down, US democracy is breaking down, authoritarianism is on the creep. And I feel like the older generations, they're fucking ignoring it. They have no idea. They really can't believe that it's
none.
happening, right?
No,
Because it just doesn't comport with their worldview. And the younger generations, I feel like, are looking at it. I think Gen Z is looking at it and they're like, "Oh yeah, everything's cooked, and like we're all just fucked." And I think millennials are kind of looking at it and they're frozen, maybe a little bit. Sorry, millennials, but I feel like Gen X is going to be the generation that comes through because we're the ones that have had to shapeshift and adapt 100,000 times already. Like it's kind of what we're good at. It's
and we
actually
don't
tying into your, cockroaches, jam comment. Like we're going to be the ones who survive, and we're going to be the ones who figure it out in, whatever post-capitalist wasteland we all end up in,
right?
because that's what we've been doing our entire fucking lives.
Yeah, and also, and this ties into that, we don't really have a choice. We're
Right.
approaching retirement age. We're, we either if we have kids, they're either young adults or they're like, getting ready to fly. Um, yeah, part of the late bloomer thing too, and this is maybe a different part of the narrative. It's we want to survive, but I also feel like part of your slash our Gen Xy late bloomer narrative is it's important. We've been hustling our whole lives, and at least for me, and I don't know if others feel this way out here, is like a need to connect authentically and be doing work or spending our time doing things that contains meaning.
Yeah.
And I think
Which
we
is
I don't
why we're doing this whole thing right here, you and
yes,
me, with these beautiful people who show up and listen to us every day, because
yes,
I want to do this to form connection and form community.
yeah,
We're not getting paid. I mean, not barely.
right. It's wanting to do work that's authentic and that we enjoy doing and that we feel like we're good at doing. And for me, Lawrence, God, there's so many thoughts hitting my head right now. I see young people entering where I work, which is a big corporation, and they've got their MBAs from their good places, and they have a path, right? They're like, I'm on the ladder and I'm going up. I never felt that way about work until
Right.
much later when I was like, oh, I guess there's a logic to this. Like, I didn't figure out maybe that's why the golden whatever you referred to it ahead of you wasn't there was because I was like, I'm just fucking around doing a job. This is fine. I'm working. I very much figured it all out. And I feel like only now I can only now write memoir because I've sort of only pieced things together and have what I hope is
Sure.
knowledge to share now. And maybe that's a defining attribute of Gen X is like this is our cultural moment where we're made to survive. And also we feel like we've learned shit, even if it wasn't in a traditional get from point A to B to C to becoming director, VP, and
Right.
retiring
Well,
into the sunset sort of a life.
and I don't know about you, but nobody ever taught me any of that, right?
Mm-mm.
Like my dad had a job, but there was no here's how the world works. Here's,
Right.
when you graduate high school, you will go to college and you'll study something that will help you get a job. And in that job, you'll do like I none of
No, pick
that.
a college, pick a major.
Right. Right. It was just understood we would go to college,
Yeah.
but I remember being a very little kid, like 7 or 8 or something, and my grandmother came to visit. And as we were driving home from the airport, picking her up, she asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, "Oh, I think I want to do advertising like my dad," because that was my 7-year-old perception of what my dad's job was, which was correct. And she said, "Oh gosh, no, don't you want to be a businessman like your uncle?" And I remember being very angry at that, but also being like, "What the fuck is a businessman?"
Right? Oh my God, Lawrence. I remember my dad being like, take business classes when I was in college. And I was like, ugh, that's what the squares do, Dad.
Right.
Which it was actually good advice. And I do wish I'd taken some business classes, maybe. But I was like, what is a business class? And I always thought I wanted to be, a newspaper journalist, blah, 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 because I was a writer and that was what I did in high school. And I got to UF where we went to college and took classes like intro to journalism and intro to advertising. And I was like, I still have a part of this in my brain, Lawrence. I'm not learning anything. But what do you do?
Right.
There was this very tangible, like, and so I ended up majoring in speech pathology because I was like, oh, I take neurology and I learn how the brain works. Okay. And then I take that knowledge and I try to transfer it to what helping people learn how to speak. Okay. Um, I remember I don't wanna say her I'm not gonna say her name because, she may not wanna be she was a friend of my brother's who's 3 years younger, and she went to Smith, I think, to some fancy school back east and moved out to Seattle and was working for, like, Arthur Anderson, one of those, like, hotshot young kids on the path, and she was a consultant, and I was like, "What does a consultant do?" And I just remember her being like, "Whatever it takes to get the job done and make the client happy," and I'm like,
What does that mean?
"What does that mean?" And
I
it's and I backed
honestly,
my way into it. I
yeah.
work with all these grown-up kids now.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I mean,
it
there's a funny
oh,
snip from Family Guy, right? Where there's just this line like, I'm a busy businessman, busy with business," you know? And like, yeah, that's still kind of like what I think, Like I took business classes in college too, and I was
right,
like, okay, we put prices on things and then we sell them. And if people want more of them, we raise the price. And if they don't know what it is, we make up sentences to explain what things are, and then people understand and they buy them. And I was like,
and sometimes those
why is this?
sentences
I want to
are
take
not quite the
Chaucer. I want to say, one that appeared with his shore sota, the drought of March hath cursed to the rota.
yeah.
You know?
This is I think this is a Gen X thing of, like, no one helped us, right? Like, I'm trying to help my eldest get into college and figure it out, and SAT, that's another thing that's made this week a bit heavy. Not complaining, just a thing, right? It's like, okay, well, we got her signed up for this awesome summer thing that she's gonna do. Um, but like I didn't, we didn't get help like that. Nothing prescriptive, right? Of like, um, you may want to major in this because that can lead to that kind of career. All we saw it through was this lens of like business classes are for the dorks. That's square. And ugh, I don't wanna do that, that's math, I don't know, I just nothing about it made sense to me, and now I'm like, "Oh, actually, that's, like, a lot of how the world moves, it's how career" like
Right. Honestly, there should be classes that everyone in college takes, but you don't call them business. You just call them like understanding the capitalist society that you have been born into.
Yes! Yes, and why math matters, not like I have to take pre-calc and I hate it and I'm struggling, but, like, yes, there should be a home economics that teaches you both how to do things in your home, like cook meals, like we were talking about the other day, and take care of things, but also tying home economics to the economics of it, of like, if you do this, this is how you make a home budget. No one taught us how to take care of a home,
Oh, good God. I mean,
even like appliance repair and stuff. Like, I've had people out to my house that, like, I remember the first time that some guy came out, the fridge wasn't working, and he was like, "When was the last time you changed the water filter?" And I was like, "My fridge has a water filter."
right.
I mean, that was years ago now, but, like, if no one I mean, I guess I could have figured that out, there's water coming out the door, that would maybe make you assume there's a filter, but, like, um, when I worked at Sears Home Services all those years ago, we were gonna make an app that became this missing gap for people like us. B bear with me because it comes back around of I called it Uncle Sears, that wasn't the official name, but it was the idea of, like, um, classically, appliances used to last for the life of a home, and the girls were taught by their mothers how to home make. They weren't just housewives, they were homemakers, right? So you learned how to cook and you learned how to clean and you learned how to do simple, there was a seasonal aspect of how you cleaned and cared for your home because it was someone's, always a woman's, full-time job to know when what to do when. And then the men of the house knew how to, change the oil, fix the car, fix the large appliances, and they passed that institutional knowledge on to their sons so they could grow up to become husbands to take care of the homes. And of course, there was a lot of baked in misogyny in that, and women maybe didn't want to be homemakers, but there was an institutional knowledge of how shit worked. And this isn't business, but I think it's a parallel of no one taught us that, and, like, there's stuff in my house I figured out along the way, and there's probably still stuff I don't know that's, like, moldering in my house because I'm all those people, and I'm the breadwinner, and I'm the parent,
Right.
and,
Right.
like, no wonder Gen X is like, "I'm very," and trying to have this, like, creative, like, side hustle, creative, meaningful
Yeah.
work that we're doing here, but, like, um, Gen X was also first, although my dad was not handy. It was, sort of still an expectation that appliances lasted a really long time and men knew how to fix stuff, and
Right.
my mom for sure knows how to take care of a home, and somehow maybe intent I should ask her, like, "Did you not pass it on to me because I take after my dad and I'm a bit messy?
Right.
Or did you not want me to take on that role and you were like, 'Go to college and have a career, so I'm not gonna get into the ins and outs?'" I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I know your mom. And so the answer, Dana, is that she loves doing it. It is she's compulsive about doing it, and she didn't trust you to do it as good as she could do it ever, even still to this day.
And I don't do it as well as she does. I mean, you can
Right.
eat off her floor always.
Right. Because she
Um,
never yeah, yeah. No, I exactly this. And it's fun, like in the chat, people are talking about, classes we can take, intro to tyranny,
Intro to Tyranny, I would take that class. But Lawrence, honestly, sex ed, but real sex ed, like what you and Fusen were doing yesterday,
real
like,
sex ed.
we
Yeah,
had
maybe
real
maybe
sex ed, and it was,
Gen X University. Come on, kids.
oh my
Gather
god, Gen
around the
X
dying
University.
fires of late stage capitalism and let us teach you. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I said it as a joke, but that idea that every college student, maybe every
Yes,
high school student, should take a class that's called like "Welcome to Capitalism," like "Welcome to the capitalist society you've been born into," because there are fundamental things about this world that are a result of the fact that we live in a capitalist society that don't get communicated to you. You learn them by osmosis,
right, if you learn them at all.
if at all, right?
And
And there's nobody ensuring that your osmosis filter is working correctly so that you're absorbing
right,
them. So you can get kicked out of the system and just have not absorbed anything.
right. I like Intro to Tyranny, Intro to Late Stage Capitalism, Intro to Home Economics, which is a real, like,
Right.
how to
The
budget for a
actual
household.
economy of a home. Yes.
Yes, what you need to fix, who what you need to do if things can't get fixed, how to cook all the basics, how
Right.
to I don't know how to sew, I don't mend my clothes, but I should know how.
Right.
And,
And even things like, hey, you have an air filter in your HVAC system. You need to change it
mhm,
regularly. If you don't, then all that dust accumulates in the ductwork, and then you've got to pay
oh shit,
more
I
to
haven't
have
vacuumed.
somebody come out and suck all the dust out of your ductwork. Like the actual like, if you don't care for it now, you're going to have to do the more expensive thing later.
Yeah, and identify it, like, as you're saying this, I'm like, "Fuck, I have one that you can vacuum," and I haven't done that in a couple years now, I think, and that's bad, I gotta go do that. Um,
But when
right?
do you have time?
Exactly, and also
And
it's
when do you
in
have the
my
money to hire somebody to come do it?
right, all like, have people do budgets, and then, like, maybe it wouldn't even just be sexuality, it would be, like, your body, and sex is part of it, but, like, here's why you need to care, and it's not just health, because health is but, like, things that can go wrong and things that can go right with your body and what you need to know about it,
Right.
including sex. We had so Lawrence, you guys, funny story. Freshman year, University of Florida,
Oh no.
Lawrence and I took human sexuality as a class, as an elective. It was in the largest lecture hall, 800 kids. I'm saying kids because we were 18, but 800 students. And Lawrence, that was a great fucking class. I know you only got a B because you didn't care about half the class and you couldn't say that then, but the woman who taught it was like an anthropologist, I think. And I seem to remember she was like, people laughed and called her a dyke back because back then they would have, but she was like a very like sort of non like killjoy feminist probably. And I remember us watching them like she would show short movies that she did not call porn, but there was one about like old people still have sex. And we watched two people who were honestly probably about the age we are now, but they seemed very old. And it
Hmm.
was set to like Jimmy Buffett or something. Like not Jimmy Buffett, but some like oldster to us music. And it was just them having sex over and over. And it was like, this is completely natural class. You just need to see that, this doesn't stop after you leave college. But, that book, I wish I still had it. It was really useful, and
Right.
it was very scientific. This is how female arousal works. This is how male arousal works. It was great.
Yeah, it was
We should
interesting. Someone made a comment after Dirty Talk yesterday, like, "Oh, I like, what you talked about with anal sex, and I wonder if that's equivalent to like clitoral orgasms and vaginal orgasms." And I was like, "Not just equivalent; it's identical, right? Like the clitoris is the penis. If the hormones are different, it develops into a different thing.
the
And
tissues are the same,
the
yeah,
tissues are the same, right? And you know, yeah, like anal orgasm, vaginal orgasm, it's deep thrusting that stimulates, something very
yeah,
deep inside. Like, yes, those are those. Like, it should be a sex ed class that talks about that. If
with
you
it,
like anal, then here's what you need to know to get your pooper ready, folks. Like that's.
right. It should just be
I'm pretty sure we could get funding through the Trump administration for this
pretty
class.
sure,
Don't
yeah,
you think?
100%. I would literally sign my teens up for all these classes that we're talking about. Oh, and also financing 101.
Oh
And
God, yeah.
like this is why you need to start saving now, 24-year-old, for your eventual retirement. And this is how investing works. Like I read some book called, I think it was called like the Millionaire Barber or something like that, that I guess in the 90s was popular. And it was like two people go to get their hair cut each month, and their barber, who charges $5 a haircut, is a millionaire, but is explaining in very simple terms to them every visit a different finance, like investing sort of topic. I do not have I have a basic understanding, and my eldest yesterday was like, "Should I buy stock? Should I be what how do you buy stock?" And I was like, "Why do you want to know?" And
It's
she's
someone
like,
trying to sell you Trump coin.
"No, but she has a job this summer. Well, she'll make, some money that for her is a lot of money, and she wants to put some of it away, and she's like, "Should I put it in stock?" I'm like, "You're asking the right question." Um I would not put it in the stock market right now. And especially because this is not long-term savings, this is for your college, which will be in a couple of years. You should probably just put this in a CD that's safe, and earn,
Right.
unless you guys have
4%,
other.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but I love that she asked, but I was like, "You should be better," like, I'm like, "I need to find, like, an intro to investing class probably for my kids to just be like," and I should take it too, because I mostly am like, "This is sitting over here, and hopefully it's doing okay." It's, I don't, like, invest, like, "Oh, I should buy this stock now because I saw this news." Like, I don't have those kinds of instincts, and,
Yeah.
um, anyways, we've kind of gotten on a whole lot of topics here,
Well,
Lawrence.
no, I was just thinking this is the most Gen Xy conversation in the universe because I know we're at the top of the hour and we need to wrap up. But so we started this conversation talking about the articles about Gen X, right? And the fact that we're scrappy and whatever. And what we've done is we've basically created an entire new project for ourselves, Gen X University, whatever
Yeah.
university, with all of these really practical life classes, and it's a good enough idea that we should do them. Somebody should do them, except that we are both already so overloaded and overwhelmed with other things. Like, who the fuck is going to do them, and with what money?
Right, right? You are not wrong, and, yeah, it's another good idea that'll just I mean, everything that's in that Economist article, these are, like, the founding tenets of what started Gen XE, which we need to write because right now our intro statement and our tagline are very whatever we tossed off to get this up and running,
Yeah,
and I think maybe these are like Gen X. We should be writing all this down. I may have to go back and take notes on our own episode. This is a tenet, at least of my brand of Gen Xy, is like we're never fully giving to any one thing because we're tossing like let's put something over toward that, and that's fill that leak. We got to fill that hole because it's leaking, and we have the podcast started, and this is going really well, but like we're not writing because we don't know, and we haven't even set up really our like
intro
how,
emails, right? Welcome to Gen Xy,
welcome to
right?
Gen XC, right? And
Everyone
and
who
our
subscribed has gotten those, and we honestly don't even know what they look like still.
and we need to do all those foundational things because ultimately, we would like this to like be at least a side hustle because and and but we're missing that foundational piece because we're focusing on what's fun because this is a for fun project, right?
Right, right.
Um, Here's another concept I want to run by you because this is really sitting with me, Lawrence. I'm gonna do a little storytelling about me, but I want to hear from you and others in the chat. Oh, look, we're getting financial advice. Fidelity has savings funds that are pay at 4.2%, but it's liquid. We'll look into that, Karen. 4.2 is pretty damn good. Um, for savings, that's like excellent. Um, so Lawrence, I think this idea of ducking goes a lot further than just staying safe at work. And here's where I'm going to go with this. I My synapses are firing throughout my life, have had like a primary thing, but I'm ducking out and doing a secondary thing that's maybe more fun for me and less traditional. And I'm going to give some examples for you throughout my life so that you can help me draw the parallels. I'm thinking about college and how, like, I had a college boyfriend, sophomore, junior, senior year, Ben. Lovely guy, not really the person for me, but when I think about college, most of the time I was ducking away from Ben and I was running around with my college roommate Christina. All of my top college like fun memories are with her. Even though I had a boyfriend and I was committed to him, I wasn't on that path to like this is my primary person and I'm going to get married right away. I had two parallel lives, the girlfriend and then the friend, but that's where the core memories were. As I was ramping up on my career, I had 3 imaginary girls. So I was like, yeah, I'm a vendor at Microsoft or whatever, worky work I was doing to pay the bills, but what I really do is I run a music website and
Hmm.
row shows and I MC things and I'm this creative wonderkind over here, but also I show up for work after I've been at the show till 1 a.m. and I do my job. And now I'm doing what I'm doing for work, which is an extension of that work that I had done. but I'm a writer and I'm Gen Xy and I'm a podcaster. Um, why do I not have a need to do what I'm doing on the side as my primary? Is it a part of me, and is this a Gen X thing or just a me thing to want to be so what's the word, multi hyphenate, that I'm like bifurcated all the time?
Yeah.
Or does
Yeah,
any
I I mean, for me at least, I feel like my entire working life goal has been to get to a point where I could do the things that we're doing now, like I mean, I didn't know it was like have a podcast and a Substack, obviously, but
right?
like the stuff that we're doing and focusing on writing and, building community with other writers. Yeah, that's what I've always wanted to do. It's just always been, there's no money in that, and and bills are real, and you gotta, go do the corporate thing to actually get something, actually keep a roof over your head.
True. It's is like, are we the first generation to care about nurturing that part of ourselves so much that we will have two lives? I don't know. I think I may be a little bit of an exception in that way, but
Yeah, I have
even
a really I have an answer to that I think would require more time than we have, and I don't know. I
yeah,
think maybe we sort of missed the boat with capitalism. That like the unknown point of capitalism was to liberate enough of us to pursue pursue the creative, that we could kind of bring in art balance into the world. But instead, it was just all literally about the capital and not about people. And now
oh, I
we've
love that.
overshot and missed it, and now we're fucked.
I think, yeah, I think about that a lot, Lawrence. I was thinking about it when you were talking to Robin the other day when I was kicked off because my phone died. Um, she was talking about healthcare and how like it's not, it's not tied to your job, anywhere but in the US. And I'm like, how many creatives, true creatives in the US have to do it like hustling on the side or not at all? Like, how much does the need for health insurance and having that sense of stability under you kill creativity?
Uh,
And not just for artists, but for like even small business owners, people who are
sure,
like,
it's got to
I
be
want to
immeasurable, right? Like honestly, I think
immeasurable.
we cannot measure the amount of art and beauty and probably additional capital, right, that we've lost. Like there are absolutely insights and artistic things that have been missed in this world that will never exist because the person was ground down by their day job,
Yep.
that would have added whatever 36 trillion additional dollars to the economy, but but we just didn't get to experience them because got to have that fucking healthcare.
Yep. I really do think health insurance is like, I mean, years ago, before life got as quite as heavy as it is now, like I might have tried giving Three Imaginary Girls a real shot to become a business if I hadn't had to worry about health insurance.
Right.
Like, I think it could have made enough money to get by and get started, but paying for health, I mean, that with a kid, especially that could have been 800 to $1,000 a month. Like, there was no way. And yeah, man, my brain is exploding with things. I think part of it though is a me thing, and maybe other Gen Xers or just everybody feels this of like, I've never trusted myself enough to be a creative, like believed in my own talent enough or my own ideas enough to be like, I should take the risk of being poor and uncertain and unstable because I have enough that I'm going to be able to get there. I
Right.
think that takes an immense amount of courage, of chutzpah. You just have to be like, no, man,
Yeah.
I got this. And to be
Well,
fair,
and
he did an
for lots
effort.
of people like me, I graduated college with a mountain of student debt. I had
Hmm.
6 months before student loan payments kicked in, right? Like if I couldn't come up with my amazing artistic world changing idea in 6 months right after graduation, it was, nose to the grindstone, get to work.
Right. And that is such my thing with my kids of like, their dad and I have been saving since they were born for their college, but we're not and we're not poor people, we're not rich people, and we've saved what to me is an immense amount of money each. I'm pretty proud of it. Nowhere near enough. And I'm like, you cannot graduate college 80 grand in debt. Like, I will not let you, if I have any power over this decision, make that choice because you don't understand what that will do to you.
Right.
Is there any degree that one can get that can make up for starting the world that encumbered? And also now in our mid to late 50s, the two of us, we don't have the runway or the high enough paying jobs or the security in our jobs to
Sure.
fund the other part of it.
Right.
I
I
mean,
mean,
we
what am
could.
I going to do now? Go to law school? I mean, I'd be
Right.
another $200,000 in debt for law school, and be 58, almost 60 years old before I could even remotely graduate. Yeah, there's no.
Yeah,
We could talk about this forever.
we
I
really
gotta
could.
go.
I gotta go too. I think my kids are probably hiding upstairs, and my dog woke up, walked around, hopefully didn't pee on anything, and is sleeping again. She needs her medicine. Damon, I see what you wrote of, I would love to make TIG bigger and better. You're so sweet. I kind of think that ship has sailed. I don't think Three Imaginary Girls, I mean, when we did it, I was in my early 30s and Liz was in her late 20s, but we were playing, 22-year-olds online. Most of the people we were writing with and building community with were younger than us. Like, it would have to be like that's not my voice anymore. Um, So I think it's more about music memoir, but and Sarah, my daughter's tuition is 16,000 a semester, but thankfully scholarship from the school covers half. Yeah, the college that my eldest is her first choice right now, where she's going to go take a week there this summer. The tuition alone is 45,000 a year, and I'm like, yeah, that's they offer a lot of scholarships, so I'm like, get working, get uh
45 grand a year. So her 4-year degree would be $180,000.
tuition only. Then there's room and board, and then there's flights, there's all the things you need to live. You're in for a $250,000 easy in 4 years, and then we have a second child, right? And I'm like, "I don't know about you all, but I can't save $500,000 to send 2 kids to school," like, so cross your fingers, it is a private school that has a lot of funds that, it really would be the perfect school for her, but, sometimes is it worth perfection if it comes at that kind of a cost in terms of going into debt? And that's a very reasonable price for a private school.
Right.
Like
Crazy.
NYU is about 80 grand a year for tuition alone. RISD, where Denise went, I think it's about 60 grand a year for just tuition, just tuition.
God.
Yeah.
Ugh. All right. On that depressing
Uh,
note,
right?
thanks for
Or it's,
joining us to talk
yeah.
about the state of the world in Gen X,
bef-
folks.
right? And before you jump off, we're doing an AMA tomorrow, right?
We are. So Shar is going to join us for part of it, and we're also doing an
Okay.
AMA.
Oh, excellent. I didn't see y'all. I don't even know what's up with my own podcast. Shar Sundest, amazing. Thrilled she's joining us. Do you want to give a like half a sentence just to tell folks who's going to be
Yeah.
here?
So Shar is another very dear longtime friend of mine. Dana knows her, of course. We're all from, well, not from Seattle, but we've all lived in Seattle for many years. Shar is a shamanic practitioner and psychic. She is a poet and a writer and a memoirist, and her work is incredibly powerful. She talks a lot about power and power dynamics and trauma and healing. And her focus as a practitioner is on healing and kind of the variety of ways in which people can kind of encounter healing in their lives. Mostly from an energetic and sort of Native American inspired tradition. She's amazing. She's super fun, and yeah, it'll be great to talk with her.
Yeah.
Dana knows this. I'm helping her in the evening set up her Substack because she will flourish here. She has a great community already and has published poetry books herself already, and yeah, so please join us. I'm kind of thinking like we'll have her join in, and it can be a like we'll introduce Shar and talk to her, and also kind of do an AMA at the same time. So think of questions you
Sounds
want to
great.
know about us. Ask us anything.
Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday, all. And yeah, love you, mean it.
Love you, mean it. Bye.
Bye.